everyone, and welcome back to our next Business Bites interview. I am delighted to be here with Ruben Hernandez, the owner of EGA Homes, based here in the Tri Valley area, as well as some other businesses that we will get into
Sure.
in his amazing journey. But Ruben, if you wouldn't mind just starting off and telling us a little bit in brief about your journey to where you are now.
Oh man, where do I begin? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, so my journey, I EAS'd or got out of the Marine Corps, in the 90s. Had the honor of serving in, during the Panama conflict and also Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
Mhm.
And so I got out like many young men and women do, and transitioning out and went back to Riverside, California, where I grew up, and took my sea bag and put it at work in the home that I literally lived in from the time I was about a year old to the time that I deployed. Yeah, I went to boot camp at
Mm.
MCRD San Diego, and it was about 0200 or 2 in the morning. I put my sea bag on my front doorstep and knocked on the door, and some man answered. And I
Oh,
thought
geez.
my mom was. I said, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
I just like I said, I just returned from the Middle East, and so I was pretty amped up. And my mom sold the house, right?
Oh,
And so that
thanks for the
was
heads up.
that was the beginning of my transition back. It was
Yes.
like the home
Yes.
the home that I grew up
The
with.
only home that you ever knew.
The only
Yes.
home I ever knew,
Yes.
literally,
Yeah.
was sold. Back then, we didn't have. I mean, we had some sat phones, but we didn't have the technology they have now. We didn't have the cell phones and all that, or even email that
Yeah.
we could rely on,
Sure.
especially in the field. And so that started the journey back.
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah.
went to my neighbor's house who was a Marine in the Korean War,
Mm,
and I said his name was Charlie, the late great Charlie, we call him.
mm.
And yeah, he let me crash on his couch, and then my mom showed up, and it was like, welcome home.
Yeah.
That started my journey
Yes.
back.
Yeah.
That was my transition.
Yes.
And then shortly after that, I went to RCC, which is a local community college,
Mhm.
and started my undergrad work and got some jobs. Back then, when we transitioned, we had to kind of figure things out. We didn't have as many resources and nonprofits that they have today,
Yeah.
and
An
so it was
important point
oh,
in
it's
in
huge.
this journey. Yep.
Well, I mean,
Mhm.
it helps mitigate a lot of issues,
Mhm.
but we didn't have it,
Yeah.
so we literally just had to figure out, where to work,
Mm.
are we going to go to school? What we're going to do? So I
Yeah.
just started at the community college,
Yep.
and then eventually worked my way up, my grad school.
Mhm.
Went to work in corporate America for a while before going to law school, and then eventually, after my stint in corporate America with General Electric and Merck Pharmaceuticals, I started EGA Homes as a for-profit, full-service real estate firm,
Mhm.
specifically with the mission of increasing the percentage of veteran home ownership.
Mhm.
That's how the journey started.
Yeah. So, share with our viewers. You went from junior high because or junior high, excuse me, junior college
Mhm.
because like, oh, this is the next thing I'm supposed to do, right? To I'm supposed to now work in corporate America because this is the next thing I'm supposed to do.
Sure.
To I'm going to start a real estate firm,
Yeah, that's an
right?
interesting
Start a
question. Yeah,
business.
that's good.
So, what shifted, or was there a moment where it was like, I need to go off on my own, or this is a service that needs to happen?
Yeah, so the light bulb moment for me really was I had the opportunity to work for Jack Welch, who was the CEO of General Electric.
Mm.
It was a Fortune 2 company. So I was lucky enough to get my MBA at UC Riverside,
Mhm.
and I was recruited to General Electric, out of graduate school. And so I just started to read and look at how Jack ran a business, his success, his challenges. He used a lot of military metaphors like "let's go kill the enemy" and
Mm.
"we got to win the market share war." And I just looked at how he pivoted
Mhm.
through different changing markets, and I was just enamored. Nobody in my family had ever owned a business. My
Yeah.
dad's retired military and law enforcement,
Mhm.
and although divorced, I still got to see my dad
Yeah.
once in a while.
Mhm.
And then my mom was a retired teacher,
Mhm.
so other than a
I
paper
feel like
route,
we're living like the same that's literally my parents. I mean, they're still together, but it's like teacher and
in
military and law
military
enforcement.
and law
Yeah,
enforcement,
it's like, and
yeah.
then here we go. Let's just start a business
That's right.
and
It's
figure it
exactly what
out.
happened. It
Yeah.
was like, but the I think the epiphany was just understanding that it can be done,
Mhm.
right? Understanding the Marine Corps, we always talk about, being resourceful, how to improvise when you need
Mhm.
to, mission, mission, mission. Anybody that has served in the Marine Corps knows that mission is number one.
Mhm.
And so it was that epiphany or that light bulb moment was really watching Jack Welch, how he ran his company, that it was okay to be a Marine. Like,
Yeah.
when I transitioned out, obviously I was angry. I'm a combat Marine, so I was angry and, didn't really understand how to turn things on and off.
Yeah.
Because as a Marine, we're trained and conditioned and programmed to fight. I was taught that every Marine dies for his country. That's our mission,
Yeah.
and we believed it. And so to change directions is literally a 180 that I found very, very difficult.
Sure.
In addition to trying to like balance all the emotions and things
Mm.
of understanding that the Panama conflict was not about really getting Noriega, a drug dealer, out of office. It really was about controlling the Panama Canal.
Mm.
So as a teenager, I didn't understand any of that.
Sure.
But as you get older, you start to put things in perspective.
Looking back, and it's like, oh,
Yeah. So I
mhm,
literally was angry. I had a supportive sister and mom
good.
and niece
Mhm.
and a nephew, and I ended up I had a job and going to school, and I still was sleeping in my truck and in my office, showering at the gym because I just couldn't. I didn't understand what was going on, but I know now as an older individual looking back,
Mhm.
there was a bit of like being disenfranchised,
Yeah.
right? Disconnected
Mhm.
from being able to transition back effectively,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
put all the emotions and thoughts into perspective
Yeah.
because we didn't have the exit counseling for PTSD. We didn't have any of that.
Mhm.
So we literally, and I know that you're probably going to see a lot of your viewers and listeners understand this
Mhm.
in our generation. It was about go figure it out,
Yeah.
and we did, and that's what we had to do. So with that epiphany was really seeing that it was okay to be a Marine.
Yeah.
At that time when I was a bank teller, I was a telemarketer while I was going to school,
Mhm.
and I didn't even put Marine Corps on my resume because
Mm.
back then we were more of a liability. So they would say, "Yeah, you're a Marine, you're infantry, you served in combat." Like they didn't correlate all that to
Yeah.
leadership and mission
Mhm.
accomplishment back then as
Yeah.
much as they do now,
Yeah.
right? And so I didn't put it because I would get all the
Wow.
I call them dumb questions, but they're really not dumb. But I would get all the questions, how many people did you kill? Like, how was it in combat? I would get those questions
Yeah. Of
and it would trigger these emotions and things that I
course.
just didn't want to deal with.
Yeah.
So I've been the master of suppression
Mhm.
forever,
Mhm.
and I kind of like it.
Mhm.
But then when you have to deal, you get these questions as part of transitioning into a job, it just was very uncomfortable for me.
Sure.
But Jack Welch made it okay to be a Marine again and
Mm.
use metaphors and terminology that we're comfortable with.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. So that was the moment where I like, I think I want to start a business.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And why did you choose real estate?
So real estate, so the initial genesis for that was to increase the percentage of veteran home ownership
Mhm.
because back then less than 5% of veterans used their VA loan to buy a home.
Tell us, what do you mean by back then? What was back
I'm
then?
sorry, this was in the late 90s and
Okay.
in early 2000s,
Yeah.
right? So I looked at the percentage of veteran home ownership and realized that a lot of foreign entities actually owned more real estate than veterans did back then.
Mm.
And I was shocked. I
Yeah.
was unfathomable for me to understand that the veterans have served this country, right? Yet, that American dream of real estate, we were just per capita underserved, right?
Mhm.
And so I said, we're not, that's not gonna happen. So the next mission,
You have your mission.
that was the
Your
mission,
mission.
right?
Yeah.
Because Marines think mission, mission, mission.
Yes.
And so that was the mission. So the original genesis was to increase the percentage of veteran home ownership, and I wanted to invest. That was the other thing. I wanted to make some real money. I was making probably $600 as a corporal, as an NCO,
Mhm.
and then like $130 danger pay, they called it.
Mm.
So I was just volunteering for everything to get that extra 130 bucks.
Yes.
But that was the epiphany was like,
Yeah.
I think I can do this, right?
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
making, so essentially mirroring what we learned as Marines
Mhm.
on active duty
Yeah.
and just transitioning that into business
Yes. Yeah.
was really what it took to get it done.
Well, in starting a business, especially if you don't have a business background or you haven't grown up in business or entrepreneurship, and probably either way, everything you have to kind of figure out on your
You
own,
do?
which just like you said, and when you got out, I got to figure all this out and
Absolutely.
as including where am I going to live on my neighbor's couch,
That
right?
was
For
it.
now. Um, do you find that that helped you when you started your first business
Oh, it
and
did.
prepared you for
It did if you
learning?
can translate. It did if you can connect the dots that
Mm,
way.
mhm,
A lot of times we tend to like live in our own silo, right? Where we don't necessarily correlate, A to B. It's
mhm,
just sort of like, so yeah, to answer your question, when I began to correlate, like I said, those attributes, characteristics, our MO in the Marine Corps
mhm.
to business success,
Yeah,
that's really what helped to take off.
yeah, yeah. I mean, including the leadership and mission. I mean, that's what keeps businesses going is, getting everybody in line with the vision, with the mission, and everybody's working towards a common goal.
Sure.
So, you've been in business obviously for some years,
20 plus years.
just a few
Yes.
years.
Yes.
Um, What do you see as the keys to a lasting business?
I mean, obviously, in any industry, in any business, right? You have to pivot.
Mhm.
I always use that example of Blockbuster that could have been Netflix.
Mhm.
I always
That's a
use
good
it.
one. Yes.
Well, because Blockbuster was offered Netflix for 50 million,
Mhm.
right? And they said no because they couldn't see people not wanting to physically go into
Yeah.
Blockbuster and change their VHS videos back then. I'm
Mhm.
probably dating myself. But now Netflix has a
Oh, look,
market cap.
I remember Blockbuster Friday
Well,
nights.
well, yeah. Well, then a very you're a
Yeah,
young
we're
soul,
very youthful, aren't we?
very
Yes,
youthful.
yes, we are.
But yeah. So Netflix has a market cap of 50 billion. I mean, that was a
Mhm.
huge, like,
Yeah.
oops.
Well, it's like, oh gosh, was it Henry Ford or probably butchering this, but he said, if I had asked the people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses,
Sure,
right?
sure.
They're not thinking about a car,
100%.
right?
100%. And so, well, that's a great example because a lot of those businesses actually were created and grew during what they call down markets, right?
Mhm.
Could be a recession, right?
Mhm.
So,
So
to
being
answer,
able to pivot when and watching the market and knowing what to do to keep going.
you have to do that,
Yeah.
right? And so that's the key, right? Is one, staying ahead of the game, staying ahead of
Mhm.
these changes.
Yeah.
So in the real estate field, obviously interest rates are a big thing.
Mhm.
Right now, the NAR lawsuit is huge.
Mhm.
We already have a plan to not only not worry about those changes, but to succeed through them as
Mhm.
well, to look at opportunities in that change rather than letting fear prevent us from making necessary decisions.
Yes.
That's the key. If you can get fear out of your algorithm, if you can just say, look, everybody has fear,
Mhm.
right? The only difference between a hero and a coward is that the hero feels the fear and takes action anyway, right? That's
Yeah.
the only difference.
Mhm.
So if you correlate that to business, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Just understand it. Now, I read every morning, obviously. I
Mhm.
have my morning routines,
Yeah.
which is a huge, huge success factor.
Mhm.
And a lot of that includes staying ahead of market trends,
Mhm.
understanding where we're headed. And then I have a great team. There's about 100 of us now.
Mhm.
I have a great team that really keeps us collaborating and focused on progress.
Mhm.
What do we need to do next?
Yeah.
And that's how I've been able to open several offices.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Always moving forward.
Always.
What's next? Reach the next goal, stop to celebrate, and then keep moving.
We celebrate quite a bit.
Yeah,
That's the other
that's good.
thing. We
It's important.
balance, we have a lot of fun, but we also know that business is business.
Mhm.
There's some nepotism. I have relatives that work for us as well,
Mhm.
but people don't even know we're related when we're on the clock,
Mhm.
literally.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, no, it's been awesome.
Great.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
not easy
Yeah.
ever, but
Yeah.
definitely, definitely awesome.
What would you say has been one of the biggest challenges in business?
So, I mean, there are many. Honestly, as I mentioned, knowing when to pivot.
Mm.
There is no roadmap for business success,
Mhm.
right? Nobody says, "Here you go,
Yeah.
and here's your GPS. Here's how you're going to go from point A to point B."
Mhm.
You have to fail your way to success, honestly.
Mm.
And if you are adverse to failure, or if you don't have thick skin and
Mhm.
saying, "Look, I don't want to fail,"
Mhm.
good luck. I don't
Yeah.
know any business man or woman that has never failed,
Yeah. What's the
especially if you're
lesson
successful.
in it? It's the lesson.
You learn, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you pivot, you learn, you take your punches.
Mhm.
We all take losses, but you get up and you fight again every day,
Mhm.
and there's honor in that.
Yeah.
Really, I call it you're a business warrior,
Mm.
right? Because business warriors are always fighting no matter what.
Mhm.
And it sounds a little bit more intense than it really is, but it's just getting up every day with intention and purpose, and as you mentioned, progressing,
Mhm.
always looking forward, forward
Yeah.
thinking. And that's been the key,
Mhm.
and bringing in great people around me.
Yeah.
I get credit for a lot of things I don't deserve credit for, honestly.
Mm.
But it's because I have people around me that are
A solid
amazing.
team.
Oh, they're just amazing on the for profit and the nonprofit side.
Yep.
Amazing.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it's not easy, but it's like having a vehicle
Mhm.
with an amazing engine that
Mhm.
just runs. As long as you keep tuning it up and
Yep.
oil changing it and all that, it's going to run efficiently, and that's what I've been able to build.
Mhm.
But I don't deserve credit for a lot of the success that we've had, honestly.
Solid team.
It's a
Yes.
tremendous, just like the Marine
Yeah.
Corps.
Mhm.
Everybody in a fire team brings their expertise,
Mhm.
and as a unit, we win the battle and we ultimately win the war.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing in business.
You mentioned your nonprofit, so you're very active
I am.
in the community and with veteran community. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit more about Boots to Suits
Sure.
and how that came about, and also how people can get involved.
Sure. Yeah. So from EGA Homes, we formed the Boots to Suits program,
Mhm.
which helps transitioning military, reservists, spouses, and active duty. Anybody that wants to get a real estate license or enter the real estate field, We'll hire them, license them, train them. We'll get them all squared away in terms of how to implement the fundamentals necessary in sustaining incredible, successful business in real estate.
Mhm.
So I share everything. I don't sell anything. People are like, you should probably write
Mm.
a program or a book. And I'm like, no, I'm going to share everything. So when I leave the earth, everything's going to stay here.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And those best practices are invaluable because this will be our third market shift
Yeah.
with all the craziness going on right now in the real estate industry. And we're excited. I hate to
Yeah.
say it, we're excited about it. Got our butts kicked during the first, round,
Mhm.
and then the '08 crash. We were a little bit more prepared, but still took on a lot of casualties.
Mhm.
And then we're like, this time around, we're like, what do we do next?
Yes.
Like we're on it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of resiliency,
Yes.
right? And continuing to move forward, right? You have a vision, you have a mission, and despite what happens in the market or despite the things that you can't control,
Sure.
you still know where you're going.
Absolutely.
And it may not look like how you thought it would,
It never does.
but once you've been through it before, it's like, oh, okay, we've been through this before. We can
Yeah.
do this, or we know what we need to focus on or not focus on
Sure.
to
Yeah, I
redirect.
remember hitting a certain, benchmark, right?
Mhm.
And I remember talking to my team, and I'm like, "Man, we're here," but it didn't look the way I thought it's
Yeah.
not as glamorous as I thought it would
Right.
look. It's not
Yes.
like the movies, it's not like the Wolf of Wall Street.
Right.
Well, sometimes it is, but
Yeah.
not always.
Yeah. You're just like, yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like,
not Hollywood for sure.
yes.
There's a lot of grinding, there's a lot of, moments where, metaphorically and literally,
Mhm.
you're turning on and off the lights at the beginning, at the end of the day, and you're scrubbing toilets when you have to as well. And so, yeah, it's just not as glamorous as I thought it was. But
Yeah.
but then, we learn to embrace that as well and say, look, nothing ever goes as planned. Let's just keep rocking, moving
Mhm.
forward.
Yes. So with Boots to Suits, now is it an ongoing program or do you offer classes or how does that work?
Yeah. So typically we do 4 cohorts a year,
Okay.
right? So we parallel our cohort classes
Mhm.
with SkillBridge and Hire Our Heroes program.
Okay.
So we work with the Department of Defense to help active duty military transition.
Mhm.
And then we have another program where it's ongoing, where whether you're military or not, or maybe the timing doesn't work well with the boots to suits, we'll still put you in a program to allow you
Okay.
to get licensed and still teach you the fundamentals.
Okay.
Now we're doing that remotely as well through
I
Zoom.
was going to ask you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I figured you might.
Mhm.
We have to pivot,
Mhm.
and with traffic and
You want to be able to reach more people.
absolutely, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, that's a great point. So I recently took EGA Homes to EXP, so now it's
Mhm.
EGA Homes, at EXP or broker
Okay.
by, and an amazing transition.
Mm.
But it's opened up the entire country. I opened a the entire world, I should say, because I opened a Cabo San Lucas office as well. I opened an
Mm.
office in Arizona,
Mhm.
and I didn't have to get licensed in those states to do that.
Yeah.
And so now my network has allowed me to implement and integrate leaders. As long as I have a leader in each area,
Yeah.
we can scale our EGA,
Scale.
boots to
Yeah.
suits, and our VHA model
Mhm.
in any marketplace.
That's
That's
fantastic.
awesome. I love
Ah,
it.
I love
It's
it.
exciting
Yeah, it
and
is.
help more veterans in the
Yeah.
process. Love
Very
it.
cool. So how can people reach you?
Yeah, so, there's a few ways.
Mhm.
So EGA Homes is www.egahomes.com, which is the Marine Corps logo. I've already cleared that, with the Marine Corps. I got
Yeah.
a call from their trademark
You
attorney,
heard it here.
a colonel. You heard it here.
Yes.
We're good to go
Yeah.
for 20 years. And then, so really info@egahomes.com
Okay.
would be an email. You can email Ruben at egahomes.com.
Mhm.
We're on all the social media platforms as well. So whatever you have an affinity for, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram, Facebook,
Mm.
whatever, you can always direct message us on any of those platforms as well.
Great.
We have a team that'll contact you back, or
Mhm.
I'm always available. I make myself available as much as possible.
Okay.
It's pretty
Great.
awesome.
And then for Boots to Suits, how can people get involved or
hmm
become part of the program?
Yeah, so it's boots-suits.com.
Mhm.
But again, the same email address, we'll keep it simple. It could
Okay.
be info@egahomes.com.
Mhm.
It's being checked on a daily.
Mhm.
You can get information there, or you can even register online.
Okay.
So EGA, Boots to Suits, and the nonprofit Veteran Housing Alliance
Mhm.
is www.vha1.org. It's
Okay.
an org.
Yep. Got it. All
hmm
right. Well, thank you, Ruben, so much for sharing your story. And it's very inspiring. And I wish you continued success and can't wait to see, what's to come next
Well, likewise.
with
Yeah,
that
thank you.
that visionary mind of yours. So, thank you everybody for joining us,
Appreciate it.
and feel free to write in the comments your top aha moment, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely, and might I add one quick thing here is if you need any assistance, whether you're part of our team or not, we're always open to helping, others, help in the business sector if they wanna be entrepreneurs. We make ourselves available to provide best practices when they need it.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
See ya.